Already start.
Okay. First of all, thank you, the organizing committee, for selecting my paper for the conference. This paper is simply based on literature reviews that I've done during my stay here. I joined the faculty as a visiting professor in April, and the months of May and June. I tried to prepare this paper in consultation with Professor Andreas. I used the course that I teach on critical perspectives as a means to do the review of the literature while I'm teaching. So it's like a blessing in a disguise, okay? The preparation of the paper. It's about policy agriculture, relying on a review of cases from West Africa, particularly from Kenya and Ethiopia. So I begin the introduction by simply outlining some of the issues that are written in the literature, focusing on controversies, whether it's a conventional agriculture or sustainable agriculture, which is more promising in terms of contributing to food security, because we are observing a lot of crisis in food production on our planet, because the way we act is not very boundary. So we observe a kind of danger ahead if we continue to use some kind of chemicals that we are putting in agriculture and other activities, then we are not in a safe operating zone. So there's a lot of middle income and low income countries. Still, we do not find sufficient policy support for those kind of practices. So what is missing out and what are the efforts being made is a question we're trying to raise and doing a review here, particularly in the context of Africa. Agroecological methods, including dietary diversity and food security. So there's heterogeneous farming system in the continent, which is justifying for the need to form more sustainable agriculture based on agroecology approach. So the objectives of this paper specifically are two. First one is to provide insights into policies and practices towards promoting sustainable agriculture, and then looking at the potential barriers and opportunities in transitioning to sustainable agriculture. Basically, the questions are, what are the policy practices and what policies need to be in place in order to take this objective forward in terms of review. We try to look at different concepts that are very much interrelated in the literature, issues like integrated landscape management, watershed management, sustainable land management, sustainable agriculture, and agroecology, how they are related and how they differ. And what we found was just that they are all looking at multiple actors or stakeholders acting at different levels and supporting transition toward a sustainable food systems. Okay, so agroecology is in general appreciating heterogeneous practices and technical practices as well, and interdependence, integrating social, economic, and environmental concerns. Particularly when we look at African perspective, as previous speakers tried to mention, food security is a critical, receiving a critical attention from policymakers, and then we should raise a question whether before we emphasize adoption of sustainable agriculture. So when we look at the definitions, I try to scan through literature and then found Welton and et al.'s definition on sustainable agriculture as a farming system designed to be environmentally, socially, and economically sustainable over a long time, aiming at producing food and other agricultural products in a way that meets the needs of the present without compromising future generations' ability to meet their own needs. So with this definition, I consider that the sustainable agriculture is just considered as part of agroecology, because I believe that agroecology is much more broader than sustainable agriculture in terms of components and issues that are addressed. Sustainable agriculture capturing aspects of integrated landscape management, watershed management, and sustainable land management. So to guide the review, this framework was adopted, and is based on the frameworks that I have used, developed together with my colleague, and then published one of the articles that we had in the Journal of Environmental Management. And in this framework, we have three basic components like technology attributes, farmers attributes, policies and innovations, agricultural practices or agroecology, or collective action in practicing agroecology, and that will generate certain outcomes. And these outcomes could influence in turn the three components, because if outcomes are not really satisfying or are not as expected, then probably we can change the technology attributes, the way we organize communities, the way we provide technology, or the kind of services that they need in order to enhance their performance. So the different practices that I'm going to talk about here can be looked at using this framework to enhance our understanding. So the research questions, of course, for literature review, we do have research questions. Part of the research questions are also falling into those questions that the organizing team are organized for the workshop. Particularly, this paper is falling into the first question that is outlined there. So what are the existing policies promoting sustainable agriculture? What are the actual practices and experiences in those countries, especially Kenya and Ethiopia? What are the barriers and opportunities transitioning to sustainable agriculture? And are there some elements of agroecology? Because as we have been hearing this morning, agroecology includes a lot of things, and sometimes you may not even find consensus among those who are pushing it forward in terms of defining and conceptualizing. So we are in the process of learning, and I'm in the center of learning, so I'm at the school. So the data is generally based on search engines that we made to Google search engine, reviewing about 47 journal articles, 4 book chapters, discussion papers, policy briefs, and so on, and gray materials that we found online, and then clustering them to thematic areas and reviewing them conceptual frameworks that I've just shown earlier. So coming to the policies and the practices, I would say this is a kind of results based on review literature. In the context of Ethiopia, we have policies that are supporting sustainable agriculture, like CRG policy, climate resilient green economy policy, having 4 important pillars. And one of these pillars is very relevant to agriculture, which is about increased food security by lowering greenhouse gas emissions through improving farming practices. And I will take you through the cases related to this a little later. Then climate smart agriculture, investing in adaptation to climate change. One is on subsidy reform, particularly on fertilizer and fuel, where farmers were selectively accessing subsidy from fertilizer based on the soil condition on which they operate. And there are a number of approaches and interventions around this that I will be looking at. When it comes to practices like integrated watershed management, where farmers are engaged in at the landscape level, at the watershed level, such as productive safety net program, where farmers are achieving dual objectives of enhancing food security and at this time achieving environmental management through investment in conservation. You can see the cabbage field that is being managed by farmers in downstream because of the investments that they made in the upstream in soil and water conservation through PSNP. And also this also includes preservation of wild habitat in specific areas, and then fattening programs, which is like commercial and practices of farmers like harvesting grasses and then feeding their cattle. And then we have integrated landscape management, which involves the rehabilitation of hilly areas, and also involving some income generating activities like beekeeping that adds to family income. And also we have index-based insurance and the mini-grid, which are considered as agroecological practices, where farmers are involved in alternative energy sources rather than using, for example, fuel for generation of energy at the farm level when they are involved in irrigated farming. And when it comes to Kenya, there are a number of policies that we try to review, but each of those policies looks into aspects of agroecology, for example, in terms of regulations for food safety, in terms of setting research priorities based on diversity, hierarchy, and complexity, and coordinating different research agenda setting meetings in different counties. And so there are a number of policies that we looked at. And coming to the practices in the country, we have like integrated landscape management, which is undertaken in around upper Tana River Basin, which has increased plot level productivity and which has also triggered water user associations and having spillover effects of improving productivity of farmers downstream. And then we have sustainable land management, which is integrated with agricultural carbon project, which has been considered as a flagship project in Kenya, where farmers are involved in agroforestry and mulching within the framework of CDM, Green Development Mechanism, where they receive income based on the level of carbon that they were able to contain in the soil. And adoption of agroecological farming, that's a system which is critical in terms of reducing use of chemicals, where IPM is introduced in order to overcome pests like stem borer and the striga. Then comparing both countries, I tried to compare both on 4 aspects and then found slight difference between the two in terms of policy, national framework, as well as land federal system, but both countries try to follow the same approach in terms of targeting and the approach that they follow. Yeah, and then I try to compare based on 5 principles. Basically, there's principles of agroecology, and we observe some important elements along that as well in terms of practices. For example, if you look at resilience, the 5th principle here, the practices that I mentioned earlier, like index-based insurance and the mini-grid, they are all contributing to resilience of farmers to different kinds of shocks occurring due to climate. Coming to the barriers in transitioning, then we have issues like limited knowledge and awareness, absence of data, and the poor coordination, and a decline in transition, decline in yield, in supporting transition as within the literature, and also aspects of political instability, especially in the context of Ethiopia. And there are also some policies that are important for scaling up of those practices that I mentioned are successful, like creation of incentives and capacity building, co-design development of co-development of knowledge with farmers, policies that need to consider agroecology in terms of revising our curriculum and our research system, and institutionalizing project-based initiatives in order to scale it up and make it part of the regular planning. Coming to the conclusion, then I would say both countries have translated the green growth strategy adopted by the African Union into actions through designing local interventions. The actual practice, both countries demonstrate wide elements of sustainable agriculture and fall into one or the other elements of agroecology, as is specified in the literature, particularly by FAO. And some practices introduced by the state intervention, other practices are project-based, and therefore there's a need to learn something out of project-based interventions and make it part of the regular practice by institutions of both countries. It's important to emphasize as well the role of subsidies, enhancing adoption of technologies, particularly for sustainable agriculture, rather than subsidizing conventional agriculture. Then countries can also adopt the climate smart agriculture and climate change adaptation, and then realign their policies along this, because most of the donors in Africa are emphasizing these aspects, and so there is a need to realign sustainable agriculture policies along with those climate change policies. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Fekadu. Are there some clarification questions? Yes, please, Saul.
Thank you, Ariana. Fekadu, thank you very much for your good presentations, and I like it. Just in your framework, you show the technology attributes. So 3 attributes. One is scale in village, household, and watershed. So how can you differ the technology attributes in this skill? And do you have any example to differ this technological attribute in this skill?
Yeah,
you.
basically, when you talk about the scale issue, it starts from the farm level, from the plot level. What farmers are doing on the plot level and at farm level and at the village level, they are all interconnected. For example, if you look at the integrated landscape management, the planning is done collectively by farmers. So what one household should do at the plot level can influence activities at the landscape level. That's why I talk about scale when I talk about technologies. Yeah.